Good evening. Welcome to the Avon Grove Charter School working session board meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. It is February 15th. If everyone will rise and pledge allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If the board would recite the mission statement to inspire passion for lifelong learning, one student at a time. And Christina, roll call, please.
Dwayne Degler.
Here.
Stacy Barno.
Here.
Michelle McCray.
Here.
Deji Akintoy. Brian Ladman.
Here.
Colleen Preston.
Here.
Eugene Steger.
Here. Great. Thank you very much. We're going to go right ahead and head of school presentation.
Okay. So we have not visited the strategic plan in a while, so we wanted to update you on some of our goals. I do have a little flyer for you just as a little update of our pillars and what we were looking to accomplish this year. So if you want to just take one and pass them down. There you go. You're welcome. And then I will have Ryan Taylor start. She's going to come up and talk about social emotional. If you want to come up, Ryan, can you bring that little speaker to? So Ryan's goal is the support for all learners. So she works with the teachers and the administration to build the SEL programming and mental health. And there is a crisis all over schools right now in Pennsylvania when it comes to social, emotional, and mental health. So she can tell you where we stand. And we are no different. We're seeing an increase of behaviors along with mental health need and support. So she'll talk to you where we are right now.
So our strategic plan under support for all learners focuses on two major components. It's the social emotional learning and positive behavior interventions and supports. So to start with the social emotional learning from a broad level view, the goal this year is to support staff understanding of what social emotional learning is and knowing those 5 competencies through the collaborative academic and social emotional learning. And then from there next year, the goal is how are we embedding those into our practices within the classroom? So for that, we're working a lot on staff wellness activities, modeling those standards during staff meetings. And then we've piloted some professional development opportunities to further our staff understanding. We have different committees at each divisional level that meet and bring back activities and plans for what we're looking to do next year, which is focusing on students in the classroom. We're still working on students this year, but really having staff have that deep understanding. We are also at the same time increasing supports for students due to student mental health needs. We are, like Kristen said, seeing an increase. It's not just in our school, it's in the county. Valley Creek Crisis is our local crisis center. They have seen the highest that pretty much they've ever seen. Especially with the local hospitals closing, Chester County is getting flooded as well. So they added an elementary student assistance program, which is it's with the county. We have a student assistance liaison that will help us with our mental health needs. So that was just recently added through a grant through the county. So we're really excited about that. We're also, we recently started mental health maintenance days for our high school students. So that's just an optional. Kids can come. We do it here in the collaboratory. It's informal, and our support staff is available for anyone that needs kind of that break. So that's been really successful as well. And we're kind of piloting that this year to see how we can kind of carry that forward and get student feedback on that. Our other goal is increasing 100% of students having an adult that they can count on. So we did our fall survey and our results were about 87% of students having an adult that they can count on, which is similar to the spring, which is good that we were able to maintain that over the summer. Then since that fall survey, we've done relationship mapping during professional development, identifying students at risk, identifying faculty matches, and really focus on bolstering those relationships. And we will then again reassess to see our progress in the spring. We're also doing a high school virtual club fair to try to get more students involved in those clubs and activities. So that is our social emotional learning and mental health. Again, we have seen an increase. We've done more risk assessments this year than we ever have done in the past, but I feel like we have really done a great job at identifying students and providing supports. So I just encourage families that if anyone needs anything, don't hesitate to reach out. It can be daunting to get those supports and find resources, but that's why we're here. So if anyone needs anything, please reach out. And then our positive behavior interventions and supports, we also did well with our maintenance this year. We are focusing on positive to corrective ratios, which the ideal is for every 4 positive, you have 1 corrective, or for every 1 corrective, 4 positive. And we'll have our fidelity walkthrough with the state in the spring to see whether we met fidelity at that first tier, which is PBIS for all students. So that's the update.
Any questions for Ryan specifically on this topic for social emotional learning or PBIS, where we are so far?
I just had a quick question. Are you seeing any specific trends within different divisions? So are you seeing a surprising increase, or does it seem to be the concerns spread across the divisions? Are you seeing any spikes or concerns in one area?
I would say comparatively, it's remained pretty, as far as percentage within the divisions, it's remained pretty similar. For high school, that we are now getting feedback with these collaborative days on what's the biggest stressor for students, and it is varied. So based on the collaborative feedback from the students, we might look at targeting some specific groups moving forward with our support staff as well. But overall, there's not like one division that is significantly higher than the others when compared to like 1920.
The K-3 division in particular, their behaviors have increased as far as I can see, as far as outburst kind of behaviors. And I'm not sure if they didn't have a lot of schooling as preschoolers. If it is, I was at home for a long time and I'm transitioning and I don't have mom and the luxury of home, but I am seeing more outbursts for the little ones and more mental health support at that age group, which is something I haven't seen on a regular basis. I've been talking to some of the district liaisons and they're saying the same thing. A lot of emotional support classrooms opening up, more than just 1, 2 and 3 outplacements, and even Valley Crisis, when we were talking about that support, there's 2-week, 3-week waiting list, so you can't go immediately. There's definitely a great need in the county.
Do we feel like with the amount of staff that we have and the support that we have available to us, because obviously it's not just school support, do we feel like we have the supports in place? Is there any unmet needs that we're still searching for? Because I know any of those supports are very hard to find. You're competing with everybody who's looking to bring on new people as far as behavior supports or emotional supports. Do we feel like we have the right staff in place for now based upon the interventions and the other things we're putting in place? Or do you feel like we're always going to say there's always a need for more?
Yeah, I think there is a great need right now. I think the challenge comes down to making sure that it's done in a way that provides a long-term support for students and not just a Band-Aid fix. So what we're trying to do now is really make sure that we have a full understanding of what that need is to be able to say what supports we need for next year. I think space is sometimes a challenge too, making sure that there's that we're using our space in a way that's most conducive to those students' needs. And as Kristen was saying, there is a higher level of behavioral needs for the younger guys. When I was referring to the same, it was more mental health, depression. But as far as behavior, we're definitely seeing an increase for that K-3 level. And I think it's just relearning and reteaching all of those routines that kids have not had in years. I know that doesn't really answer the question, but
No, it does.
it's something that we are looking at right now. I don't have a full answer yet.
The ESSERS money has supported more PTAs,
Yeah.
and so that's been very helpful. I mean, that's a Band-Aid really when we can't find a placement, let's find a PTA, but you're always getting a hit or miss in their skill set too. When you get at different agencies, you're not sure who you have and what kind of, and sometimes it makes it worse. So it's a matter of finding the right support, like Ryan's saying, for that need.
Yeah, and transportation is always a challenge too with getting to and from programs or even when you do find the outside resources too.
Any other questions?
All right. Great. So next is rigorous teaching and learning. Mr. Brito is going to come up and talk a little bit about what work we're doing in curriculum and teaching and learning.
So can we just, I want to make sure the record reflects that Deja Akintoye did arrive and is at the table.
So an update on this particular pillar. The first one was the major goal of looking at our secondary schedule here at State Road. This was an item that we talked about at strategic planning for a few months in a row. It was requested that we interview the ISM consultants that were within that scope of work agreement that we looked at. We conducted that this past Friday and narrowed it down to the consultant that we believe would be the best fit for our school. Right now, I'm now reviewing the scope of work with them, implementation timelines, when scheduling would be best, and how we kind of move forward with that. We continue to look at our grading framework and curriculum. Jen Weaver is currently working with the CCIU. They're looking to have Tom Gusky come back in for training. He was here, I guess it was 2 years ago now. And was really the beginning training that we sent a group of staff members to that started the reevaluation of our grading and reporting framework. A lot of the changes that we made came out of his books and the trainings that the CCIU hosted. They're coming back. So we were looking at sending another team of teachers to that training and then potentially looking at having him come direct to the school to meet with our staff. And additional professional development is ongoing with them in terms of formative versus performance work and how we balance that out. We are currently reviewing semester 1 grade data. So we started looking at because we had this change and it was an issue that we had been talking about from last year, the difference in students' hypothetical grades under the current grading scale, and then what their grade would have been if they were in what could have been perceived as the legacy model of points achieved over points possible. So we isolated 11th grade, for example, and started looking at the variance between the two. Did the change help students' grades? Did it hurt students' grades? Sort of in a vacuum, because obviously since we made the change, teacher behavior is a variable that I can't really account for in the data. But we started to look at that to get just more information about how this has been impacting students' final academic grades. And because S1 just ended, we focused on 11th grade, are going to go down to 10th and 9th. Also continuing to have ongoing discussions with staff through the principals related to late work, the fidelity of that implementation among the staff, and making sure that there's consistency, which was really a goal of the grading and reporting framework to begin with. Prior teachers had the ability to have autonomy over their grading systems. So they would be graded differently in period 1 than period 2 than period 3. And to try to get all of our staff on a category weighted system that's similar through all of the classes was so that kids didn't have to then, understand 9 different grading systems and how things were being done. That also goes with the late work policy and homework policy, that it's as consistent across the board as possible for continuity. We were also looking at supplemental activities. This has been a request from our teachers through Quest and through the Human Resources Department. So in January, the staff completed a data collection tool where they, if they were involved in student activities, they submitted a survey that tried to collect time and effort information for them so that we can go back and start to look at how we've grouped activities, their supplemental amounts, how long teachers have been in these roles, and start to work on reevaluating and reassessing those groupings of work based on time and effort. Looking at that funding scale, and our next meeting for that group of teachers that are involved in that is March 7th. That's coming up. Do you want me to go through all these, or?
I mean, I can, if you want to, I can.
So the other area that was in our strategic plan was our curriculum framework process. Again, this is something that's continuing ongoing. Like, we never stopped doing this, but this is where we are at right now. So you'll see this is what Jen Weaver and Kim Tremmel are working on with our leads. in 2021-2022 school year, our K-8 math is in their it's written and being implemented stage of their K-8 math curriculum, as well as K-8 ELA. This year, our 9th through 12th grade ELA teachers, our English teachers in the high school, are working through their planning and writing of their curriculum and their frameworks. That also goes with the nomenclature change that we had been talking about in our strategic planning committee about moving away from Lit and Comp World Literature, American Literature, and Brit Literature to a Lit and Comp 1 through 4 to promote writing and not be as narrow focused with the literature aspect, so that they're writing that curriculum for that name change going into next year. Our 9th through 12th grade math is finishing up their writing and planning, or their planning and writing this year. And dance, we always try to have some of our electives in there. You have like big curricular areas like social studies, math, and English, and then we're sliding in elective areas on top of that. They're in their written and implemented stage for their dance and dance company classes. Next year, we're moving on to science. So you'll see science K-8 going back through their science fusion curriculum and realigning and looking at the next generation science standards, as well as the academic standards for Pennsylvania. And then after dance is written and implemented this year, we're moving to K-6 music and how we have more of a streamlined and continuous process of music education through K-6. We also, along with our curriculum frameworks, Jen has been working on an instructional resource selections, like how do we better align the purchasing that's happening of our curriculum materials and textbooks, and how do we get that on a methodical process so that we're not going to come to a year and be like, we need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars because everything came up for renewal at the same time. So we're trying to spread those things out and update resources on a methodical process. So we're looking at this year, at the end of this year, going into 22-23 is K-6 math. That's our math and focus program. We're in an older copyright that's up for renewal. And then going into next year for the 23-24, we have a big year of some items that are going to come up. Collections and wonders, which are our ELA resources, our chemistry texts and virtual labs need to be updated. Our K-8 science fusion is going to be up for renewal, as well as our 11th and 12th grade history texts.
So that's a big expense because
Right.
with COVID and resources, I think it's important to note with budgeting with Donna that we haven't bought curriculum in a while. And so we're going to start looking at what that looks like. So when you see that 23-24 school year, you see she's trying to get us back on a cycle, and it's going to be an expense.
And that's where we're going to try to look at, like, can we do things on maybe a 1 year, this on a 5, this on a 1, this on a 3, to start spreading some things out, as opposed to them all having to be on 5-year renewals where they're just going to come up again. So it may not necessarily. So again, we're going to try to look at how we do some of those renewals.
Okay.
One of the other strategic initiatives under rigorous teaching and learning was the transition and implementation of an instructional coach here at State Road. So that's Miss Beth Ann Lindenbaum. She's been working with Mrs. Weaver and really just out of reflection is trying to look back at where she's spending her time as an instructional coach. Unfortunately, she spent a lot of time as a lip lab teacher recently because we had a staff member leave, and she is English certified. So she kind of slid in to also be an interventionist. So you'll see, like, a quarter of her time was being being the lead teacher for intervention within middle school lit lab. But then a lot of her time is spent with co-teaching with teachers, going in and providing teacher observations, co-planning with teachers, direct coaching one-on-ones, PBIS planning. So she's in the classrooms working with teachers to be able to, increase their pedagogical skills, technology and integration, support, so that they have somebody else other than their direct supervisor to be able to go to in sort of a non-evaluative way to get help.
And the duties are like substitute teaching. So because of COVID and what's happening in our resources, she has been pulled more than we would have liked to seen in that first year, but due to circumstances, that's where almost half between lit teacher and duties that she's pulling. But I talked to Jen Weaver today, and she was saying the good thing is the teachers are seeking her out and she's got a schedule, like they want her in the classroom. So that's really promising that she's building those relationships and that's what she's trying to get her time in.
One of the set aside areas for that we have in terms of ESSER funds went towards after school math tutoring that we did from our ARP ESSER funding. That started right when we got back from the holiday on January 3rd and is still running. We have about 36 students who are participating. It's here at State Road. It's pretty much every day after school in grades 5 through 12. They're here in the collaboratory. There's 6 teachers that have been giving their time to be able to help the students who we identified through the MTSS process as potentially needing some additional support in math from learning loss. And they're working in about a 1-to-4 ratio of students here grouped based on needs. So that was a big undertaking that Jen did. I believe Caitlin, you helped a little bit too with it of how do we don't always offer a ton of after school stuff just because of the proximity of our school to our sending districts. So to arrange transportation and identify those students and make those phone calls and get parents on board, we're hoping that that's a fruitful thing for the kids to be able to see some closing of their learning gaps in math.
So that was supposed to end the end of February. We didn't think kids were going to show up after school, so we kept it till the end of February. They all were showing up and the teachers were showing up and we're like, oh, wow. So Jen just sent out another survey to all of them and said, how about we do this till April, till PSSAs? And all the teachers continued to volunteer and all the kids said they still wanted to come. So to get them to come to commit to something like that is huge. And so it's successful. So we're happy about that.
And transportation being provided was extremely helpful for the parents. And like Jen says, one of the key reasons that they're continuing to come through it. They're able to stay here after their classes and get home to a regional drop-off site in their district. They're not dropping them off at the door, but it makes it much easier for parents to pick them up. This is the next area. The next pillar was building community. A couple updates on some of those initiatives. We launched the mobile app when we got back from January. It's a great supplemental resource tool for parents and for the school. I'll make a plug if you haven't downloaded it. As a parent, I would suggest downloading it. There's a lot of great resources in there. It cuts out having to go to the website for a lot of things. As of yesterday, we had 543 downloads through the Apple Store, through the Apple App Store, and 175 through Android. Would like to see higher numbers there. It is one that we're doing push notifications for. It's part of our emergency communication for the snow and for inclement weather. So a plug for that. It does have a lot of information on it. Talking Points is another communication tool that we're going to be rolling out. It was initially used for our L population. It has auto translation available in it, but we're going to be looking at making it available to all of our teachers across all of our classrooms. That'll connect the teachers with the parents of our students. It allows for some real quick text-based communication if needed and if requested by the teacher or the parent. So it's just another a tool in their arsenal that they will have. And then enrollment, we're open for enrollment. We made some updates to the application. We did a couple additional revisions to make the application a little bit easier. We had talked about that in one of our previous meetings. We've done some marketing campaigns through Facebook and social media, and we just processed our postcard mailer that's going to go across the county, either the last week of February, first week of March-ish. So that was targeting school-age kids. And then at the end of the month, this month in the board enrollment report, I'll provide a year-to-year comparison for everybody to see where we were at with applications by grade level at the end of February as opposed to last year. So you'll have that for you.
You want me to take this one?
Yeah, you can take this one.
All right, so we had our fall data that we did, and now we're getting our winter benchmark. So the goal was that we would see an increase from we want everybody in the green, right? That's tier 1. And then we want, middle, and then not a lot of kids in tier 3. So the goal, and you can see on the right, the division, this was a school-wide. So we went from 47 in the fall to 60 in the winter. We went from 27 to 21. So that's a good thing. We want to reduce that yellow and then red. So we're making goals, but you'll see on the divisional goals, K-3 just missed it. So they didn't meet their spring goal, but they're close. I know that they had a meeting today for a long time and they're looking at specific teachers, because if there are specific teachers that aren't meeting their benchmarks, it's taking the school down. And so they're going to target teachers that are struggling to meet that benchmark to see why and figure out some intervention strategies for them for tier 1. 4 to 6 met and 7 to 8 met for math. So this is all for math. Very good. We're getting there and they're making these small chipaways. A lot of the K-3 stuff too is they've come in not knowing letters and it's hard. They're now doing fluency tests in first grade. And if they didn't have that foundation and they had to start from the beginning, they're playing catch up. So they're trying, the benchmarks don't change. So they're still trying to get there. So they increased tier 1 by 13%, decreased tier 3 by 7%. The spring goal is 70 for tier 1 and then 10 for tier 3. So we still have work to do, but we're making small strides. ELA, you'll see their, next one. Yep. Same thing with K-3, close to winter, spring goal. They met 4 to 6 and then 7 to 8, they were close to. They didn't make it quite there yet, but there was an increase to tier 1 by 6%, decrease to tier 3, 3.5, with the goal being 70 for tier 1 and tier 3, 10. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's where we are in benchmarking. Obviously, PSSA testing should align, but this is what's most important right now. We're not worried about tests that we haven't taken for 2 years. This is where we need to see growth for our kids when we look at data. So is there any questions about that?
I think it's important to share. I know you shared previously that, we got the benchmarking done very quickly in the beginning of the year, and that was critical to get kids in interventions in place to put those specialty supports in, because typically kids get acquainted in school and it can take 4 to 6 to 8 weeks by the time. And I think the school did a really good job. And the quicker you can get those in and identify kids and students that need that extra help support, getting back into a more typical school year. So I know you mentioned that the last time. So I think it's important to say the efforts were really, I think we're seeing them. They're going to keep compounding.
And I think for teachers, to be totally honest, and I might be speaking out of turn, but what I've seen for the last couple decades has been teachers looked at data, but it wasn't as valuable to them. They were like, let me get through what I always do. Now the need is so great, they have to look at it. And when I was talking about what's on their plate and most valuable to them, they said data. For them to say classroom data is really important to me, and it's what I'm looking at to make growth with my kids, is such a huge accomplishment. I don't think you understand, because teachers, to buy into this matters and I need to know what my kids need, is a really hard concept when they have everything else going on. And so this is important to them right now. And I know they really are trying to make big strides here. Did you have anything else you want to add? I know Caitlin is here too, and she wants to talk a little bit about special ed. You want to come up, Caitlin? And
So I just did an overlay with the tiers of what special ed looks like. Obviously, students by nature in special ed aren't always accessing grade level curriculum, but I think I wanted to highlight the number of students that are. So of our special ed population, when you look at the fall to winter, this one is math. There was growth made from students accessing tier 1 without any additional supports and services, which was awesome. And there was a decrease in that tier 3. So I think a lot of times we, like on the special ed side, we're looking at IEP goals and saying, oh, that's great, but it's not great if you're not filling in gaps. So in order to see if our continuum of services is really serving special ed students, you have to look at them through the regular tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 lens. So I was excited to see that of our special ed kids, like that tier 3 did decrease by 9%. So kids are moving based on grade level standards. So the benchmarks that they're taking are the same as non-disabled peers, and seeing that growth was really exciting for me. So that was math. And then for reading, it looks, again, around the same, but tier 3 did decrease by 7% and our tier 1 did increase. So students are making gains on grade level measures, which I think is most important because a lot of times we think, oh, the student's now in special ed, now I'm worried, but I think it makes me more confident in the way that we're approaching the continuum of services because it shows that kids truly are making the gains and growth, which again, supports them in their development. So it's obviously looks very different than our tier 1. That red is giant, but by nature of special ed, it should be, because if it looked like we were at 80%, why were they identified for special ed in the first place? So they should have been dismissed by then. So it does look scary, but with that mindset behind it.
And Caitlin, Kim, and Jen have done a really good job bringing in research-based interventions for tier 1, and kids are making huge strides there. So that is really a great job. I'm really happy to see that.
Any questions?
Keep doing it.
Yeah, right.
One quick point, Christian, you mentioned data, like teachers want more data. The teachers feel like they have
Enough.
all of the data that they.
I think what teachers got overwhelmed is they had so many resources, they didn't know where to start and pull from. And Kim and Caitlin and Jen have mapped out, here's what resources you use for what. If kids are struggling with fluency, you use this. If kids are struggling, so now they feel like, I think they have more of a handle on, I have this resource to fix this problem, and it's made a world of difference instead of, here's all the resources in the world, use what you want. Do you agree with that, Caitlin?
Mhm.
I mean, she works with them more than I do individually, but that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't think they want any more, for sure. So the next slide, I wanted to touch briefly on years ago, and some of you might be too new for this conversation. I forget, maybe 2 years ago, Brian, was it, when you started college and career readiness with the guidance counselors? So college and career readiness goals came out from the state, and we had to implement programs where grade levels were designated as, starting in 3rd grade, they had artifacts, grades 3 to 8. So conversations on what they wanted to be when they grow up, elementary career expos, technical school visits, things to get them thinking about what they want to be when they grow up. And so there was 4 categories. It was career awareness and preparation, career acquisition, getting a job, career retention and advancement, and then entrepreneurship. And so with that conversation came, we are a charter school and we have to start thinking about the future. And there was a time where STEM is all we talked about. Then everybody did STEM, right? Full day kindergarten. Everybody does full day kindergarten. So why do they continue to pick us if the districts are doing the same type of programming? And so we're starting the conversation around, what does this mean and what's the next future for us and step for us? And a lot of our conversations is focusing in here and about starting a business type of conversation, entrepreneurship with kindergarten all the way up, kind of like we built STEM, teaching them about money, budgeting, entrepreneurship. Kids are doing this naturally right now. Some of them are making more money than we are just because of how they can make money. And so embracing what they're learning as 21st century learners is really where we're headed. That goes with a lot of planning. So there's a lot that goes into how do you start a program like this. So the next slide, I've been working with Cheryl Durante's doing a lot of entrepreneurship with her CAP class, along with Kelly Hendrickson, and we've been planning just a K-3 start of what that would look like. This is an example. We had some standards, and this is just one snapshot. It's pages and pages long of concepts and competencies, supportive practices, and looking at a K-6 framework. This is going to come with more conversation around budget, person, how does it work, the whole thing. But we are going to send a survey out to the kids along with the parents, and I was just looking for some feedback from the board. If you thought that that was a nice direction, if you have any thoughts about, us starting that dialogue around the next new thing, I kind of wanted to start here and just see what you were thinking.
I'll speak first. Like, I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think about kids as they progress from here to college and then to working careers, these are all of the skills that they that sometimes are lacking.
Agreed.
When you start to look at that, and so the more that we can find opportunities that you're saying here to teach them those skills now and help them progress, and that makes their lives better. So it's not just about teaching and learning; it's life now. How do we make your life better? How do we make you better? big fan.
I'm even looking at what, Brian and the new scheduling consultant and the new high school, like what that could look like for the high school. So there's all these thoughts. It's just going to come to a presentation. And if you were like, terrible idea, then I would like pump the brakes a little because we're kind of full steam ahead with the thought process. So I wanted to make sure I had a good feeling from you as far as support.
No, I think.
Michelle McCray and I were just talking, our kids are going to DECA. That's a business club that the high school's doing, and not a lot of schools are participating. So from what I can see, just a pulse check of what our kids are doing along with what other kids, it sounds like this is a specialty. I think there was a day where, not that the microfarm is not a specialty, but our kids are moving away from necessarily the science, the STEM, and they're headed more in this direction for what their needs are. At least that's what I'm starting to see.
And I think there's the opportunities for, just teamwork and things that are going to be necessary, whatever direction they go for their career, that those abilities of, and I think any of us who've had those experiences in school, again, that it teaches budgeting, but it also teaches cooperative learning. And I think that it's an idea and an opening for students to feel successful, to be a part of something. So I think it's starting it as young as you're able, because I think that's key.
And I'm not going to lie, this warms my heart that I'm having conversation around programming and curriculum and not math. So I'm just so happy. Are you not happy? Like, this is amazing. So I hope this is what we start to continue to have dialogue about during our work sessions. That would make me thrilled. All right. So
Thank you.
now we're that's it for us. Thank
Thank
you. Any
Well-
questions about the strategic plan? Any where we are, where we're headed? Okay.
Thank you. Donna?
Okay, so I'm here to update everyone on the policies. So there's quite a few policies, some actionable and just for first read. So for the board's consideration to approve this evening, we have several policies. Policy 1017, homebound instruction, policy 2004, attendance, policy 2004.1, which is temporary medical excusals, policy 2007, confidential communications of students, policy 2008, withdrawal from school, policy 2034, pregnant and parenting students, policy 6006, child abuse. So these were presented to the board last month for their first review. I didn't receive any questions. Brian, did you? Yeah, okay. That's okay. Brian?
Anybody else want to go first?
So it'll be very simple. So part of this is we're going to be rescinding the family trips, and that's based upon it being included in the attendance policy, correct? Where it includes, so it's just taking our existing policies, going into the board docs, so we can eliminate one where it covers. Okay, that's my only confirmation.
Attendance. Under guidelines, it doesn't necessarily specifically address asynchronous days, and I was just wondering how it fit in with the language there.
Brian?
So can you be a little more specific, like the policy just about excused and unexcused?
Well, compulsory student attendance requirements, and I remembered all these while I was reading them, because I haven't learned the definitions. And now they're all gone. But anyhow, the definition there, a student shall be considered in attendance if present at any place, school, where schools in session by the authority of the board. It wasn't clear how that worked with asynchronous days. And also, I think lateness is missing somewhere in the policy.
Sure. So because we would have asynchronous days, we would be defining how attendance is being taken, right? So like on a FID day, for example, we've had to submit, how are we going to accurately track attendance and make parents knowledgeable if they're not that? As long as they meet those requirements under that particular situation, then they would be considered present for the school in session within that modality for that day. So the policy goes towards more what is present, what is absent, what are your excusals or your lawful excusals, and then what are our responsibilities in terms of truancy. the process of asynchronous days would be more like procedural based of here's for this day what present and absent mean. If you're present or absent by that designation, it means this under the policy, and then what can happen if so many accumulate or so many are consecutive.
Some reason under students, I have a note about not addressing under 18, and I don't remember what that means, so let that go. Child abuse. Can you smack and hit a child in the state of Pennsylvania legally? The thing that was weird there was that it was left out for anybody who was over 1. And so I didn't understand why that wasn't addressed. I didn't necessarily understand why you couldn't have a child in a meth lab, where you could only if it was under legal investigation. I don't know if that made any sense.
I spent a lot of time reading it a little bit.
And then I had a question.
No, the child abuse policy.
Yeah, it was a child abuse policy.
Speak to the policy at the top.
Yeah, which was odd to me. Why that was hitting and smacking was not necessarily listed there in the B for a child over 1 year of age, but semantics, I guess. But anyhow,
Okay.
The meth lab was interesting. It was being investigated by law enforcement. More importantly, though, I don't think that those are substantial, perhaps, but under delegation of responsibility, charter school employees and independent contractors shall obtain and submit new certs every 60 months. To me, that seemed kind of long. I understand, I guess that's standard.
That's long.
That
That's
is-
the state law.
And the 1-year-old, I don't know, because it's actually for the schools. We don't have 1-year-olds,
Right.
so it wouldn't make sense for us to address.
Sure.
Do you know
but
what I mean?
The older kids were not addressed. Those weren't specifically listed there for kids over 1. That was just odd.
Is that what it says, kids over 1?
It said kids under
No.
1.
There's
Can't.
specific things that are called out for under 1 versus, and then there's nothing called out for over 1. You know what I mean?
I
So
believe
it's
that.
basically like, so it's more, basically, the way it's reading is, it's more egregious. So these sort of, there's nothing good, I don't know how to say this without sounding really bad. It's basically worse to like, they're basically it's saying it's worse to slap, I forget,
Forcibly slap.
under 1, where it's not even addressed
Over.
for over. My guess is it's all from an actual, I mean,
It
it's
is.
from that's all statutory.
It's all driven
It's
by
way
the
the statute reads.
Yeah.
Like the.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just didn't sit right.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Looking for finally maybe something that can answer, though. Under training guidelines, employees are required to complete a minimum of 3 hours of training every 5 years. And my question there, is it 5 years of employment, or is it a rolling 5-year time period?
5 years of
So there's
employment.
people are staggered.
And that again, that's Act 171.
Yeah, but they get way more than that in professional
Okay.
development.
Okay. Okay, and that's it. I appreciate the feedback.
All right, moving forward, as Stacy mentioned, with the approval of these policies mentioned above, family trips, which is an older AGCS policy, will be rescinded. And then presented to the board for their first read and consideration to approve at the March 15th meeting is programs policy 1013, special education, 1013.1, evaluations for students with disabilities, 1013.2, behavior support, 1013.4, confidentiality of special education student information, 1022.1, concussion management, 1022.2, sudden cardiac arrest, policy 4010 for finance, purchases subject to bid and quotation, 4011, purchases budgeted, and 4026, attachment for procurement federal programs. And then policies to be rescinded, should the board approve those above mentioned policies, it would be an older board docs policy 1013.4, confidentiality of special education student, child find screening policy, positive behavior support policy, special education student enrollment policy, special education personnel policy, students with specific learning disabilities policy, assistive technology, transition services policy, special education training, secondary transition services policy, psychological services policy, least restrictive environmental policy, evaluations, reevaluations, and independent evaluations policies, extended school year policy, and dispute resolution. And that is it for policies.
Quick question,
Yeah.
the procurement one is, the draft is 2021. Is this something we're revisiting from last year?
Yes, every January, we have to look at the budgeted expenditures because the threshold goes up. The uniform guidelines for ESSERS was issued in August, so there are considerable updates to the procurement policy for federal programs. So we've updated them and they were reviewed by Stacy. She made sure all of the state provisions are in there. And that's pretty much why we're presenting them. We're going into monitoring in March, so we need an updated policy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from principals or directors? All right, if there's no other business for the working session, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Do we need to go right into the board session? Anyone need like a minute or two break? All right, we will go right into the,
Let me, there's a
Yeah.
line, let me get them in here.
we'll take a 2-minute break. Good evening. Welcome to the Avon Grove Charter School Board meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. If everyone would join me and rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to announce, we did have an executive session last week. I did want to make a correction. I said it was a personnel matter and it was a legislative matter, so a legal matter, so I apologize, make that correction. If the board would please recite the mission statement. To inspire passion for lifelong learning, one student at a time. Christine Olka?
Wayne Degler,
Here.
Stacy Barnum.
Here.
Michelle McCray,
Here.
Deji Akintoy.
Here.
Brian Lappin,
Here.
Colleen Preston,
Here.
and Jean Stager.
Thank you. I hope everyone got to review the board working session minutes from January 24th. Is there anyone like to make a motion to approve?
A motion, Michelle McCray.
Is there any questions or comments about those minutes? Correction? Do I have a second?
I'll second Stacy Barnum.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Again, the board minutes from the same evening, January 24th. Anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll motion again.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, corrections? Do I have a second?
Yep, I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Brian, student enrollment?
So student enrollment for the month ending.
Brian?
January.
Well, you can either go there or here.
Student enrollment for the end of January was at 1882. During the month of January, we had 5 students withdrawal, no new student enrollments in January. And you'll see on the board enrollment report, I did the first summary of new application submissions from January 3rd through the end of the month, and we were sitting at 206. That was lower compared to previous years in January, but that's picked up through February thus far. And we'll have another update at the end of February for that comparison.
Thank you. All right, student representative report. Who's here tonight? Lele.
All right. I am Lily Cruiser. I am the student council president, and I have my report. So this is a shorter one. So starting with NHS and Tri-M, NHS is continuing planning their blood drive. They continue to volunteer at Project Cure, which is they collect medical supplies and donate them to countries and places in need. And then Tri-M is hosting a coffee house on February 25th. This is going to be like their Valentine's Day one. They also plan to have another one on March 11th. And they did Valentine's serenades, and they were a huge success. Everybody enjoyed them. Next is DECA. DECA is attending states competitions in Hershey this week. They're heading there tomorrow. There's 18 students in the club participating in the competition. And then Ski Club, they continue to venture out to Camelback, or actually they go to Bear Creek every other Friday. Their new skiers are becoming proficient, and experienced skiers are mastering their skills. Next is academic competition. Varsity and JV have finished their regular season and are moving on to playoffs in March. JV finished 7th out of 22, and varsity finished 18th out of 22. Finally is athletics. The basketball team is 7 to 8 overall, and the cheer team is coming out strong every game with their cheers, and the crowd usually joins in, and the stunts they rehearse are rehearsed to perfection, and everybody enjoys them. That is all.
Thank you, Lily.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Public comment. I'll just give you the guidelines. We will recognize people for 3 minutes, up to a period of 30 minutes total. So they can't speak to yeah, I know, I'm sorry. Each person can speak for 3 minutes, up to a total for everyone for 30. Hopefully there is a sign-in sheet in the back if you wanted to speak. I will ask that everyone respect everyone else here. We do respect you. We'd ask the same that you do for us. So having said that, Brian, do you have the list? Thank you. The way this works, I will call you up. You have 3 minutes. I will time you. So if I cut you off, please know that I have a timer. It's for 3 minutes. And I'm going to pronounce the first. Lily Cruiser. I'm sorry. I wasn't expecting you to talk. All right. So,
All right, hello, I'm Lily Cruiser. I'm a junior and I'm here to share a student opinion on the masks. We are taught from a young age the golden rule, to treat others as you wish to be treated. It's this simple principle that I encourage everyone to consider when considering whether masks should be mandated or optional. I encourage you to think of the immunocompromised, the scared, the students. Personally, though I know COVID affects everyone differently, I am not afraid of being sick and I believe my vaccines and booster will support me. However, I cannot shake the thought of a student surrounded by those who have chosen to remove their mask, vaccinated or unvaccinated, being afraid that they may take home COVID to their elderly grandparent, young sibling, immunocompromised parent, or just fearing for themselves. In this way, the debate is not a matter of do masks work, is 6 feet enough, or will I really get that sick? Instead, it's a matter of compassion and selflessness. I think many people here and at home would agree that masks are annoying. I don't enjoy being muffled, nor do I, as a teenager, enjoy breaking out on my face. Having gone to the school and getting to know many students and teachers, I think many would agree the guilt of preventing someone from attending their senior prom, graduation, vacation, etc., outweighs the personal comfort we all enjoy. When I was contact traced and tested the day before homecoming, a night I had poured the prior 2 months of my life into and worked day in and day out to make a success, I felt sick to my stomach. The anxiety I felt in the minutes the test took to develop, I don't think any other student should have to endure, especially when they are doing all they can to prevent the spread. I encourage you to think of the majority of our student body, those under 18. This is the population whose decision to be vaccinated or not lies in the hands and opinions of their parents who must sign off on their vaccine. I encourage you to think of those who are scared and just want to feel safe at school and consider prioritizing their needs over those desiring a level of comfort. While I understand the pandemic has turned to a state of endemic and will be a constant part of our lives, much like the flu, it is my wish that the decision to make masks optional be pushed to a point in time where more students are comfortable with the idea. Finally, while I am the student council president, my views do not represent that of the council or the entire student body. However, as you'll see in Elena's, we had 90 students sign a petition to keep the mask mandate, and that corroborates my information presented. However, on behalf of student council, we also would like to donate anti-fog wipes to each classroom to combat the inconvenience of students' glasses fogging up.
thank you, Lily. Okay, Alina Gassler. Alina, sorry.
Hello, my name is Elena Gassler. I understand that I represent the student body as my vice president position in high school student council. So I want to make clear that I am not here as the vice president, but rather an AGCS student. I wanted to offer a student's perspective on the mask mandate conversation. Let me start by saying that I don't like masks. I don't like the acne flare-ups, smelling my own breath all day, and having my glasses fog up every time I put them on. However, these small hardships, despite these, I still wear my mask properly and proudly because I believe that they allow me to protect other people. I can wash my face more often, eat a stick of gum, and use defogging wipes on my glasses, but I can't reverse the consequences of getting one of my peers sick because I was maskless and exposed them to something I didn't know I had. With the removal of contact tracing and the shortening of quarantine period, wearing a mask is the last protection I have from the coronavirus at school. All students have the entitlement to feel safe at school. Wearing a mask protects other people more than yourself. So being in a class where everyone has their masks off makes me feel unsafe. I went around the school today during lunch in my classes asking students to sign a petition in favor of maintaining the mask mandate. Over the course of 6 periods in one school day, I collected 90 signatures. Each signature represents a student who believes wearing a mask in school is favorable over a mask optional policy. There are hundreds of contradicting studies that masks are and aren't effective. Many say they're ineffective, others say they are. So why can we not just stay on the safe side? Until we have clear, firm data about the effectiveness of masks, it is safer to just wear them. I'm not saying that we should keep the mandate for the rest of our school careers, just that we should stay on the cautious side to help keep others healthy and allow all students to get the benefit of coming to school every day. This could mean waiting a month and a half for seasonal sickness to die down, or waiting until the local government makes the decision for us. With other schools deciding to go mask optional,
This is the perfect opportunity for us to sit back and watch the long-term effects. Do the COVID cases go up? Do more students miss school? Or do the cases remain the same? I don't want to be used as the guinea pig for society. I don't want to lose my educational resources or lose another family member. Let's keep others safe. Let's keep the mandate that requires masks, and let's get through this pandemic safely together.
Thank you. Kaya Hall.
Hi, my name is Kaya Hall, and like Elena and Lily, my position as an executive officer of Student Council does not represent the opinions of all of Student Council. I've been a student at Avon Grove Charter School since 2010, and in the 12 years that I've been at this school, I've heard the sentiment that our school community is a family. I'm sure that all of us are tired of losing members of our family in school and out due to the damage that COVID-19 has proven to cause, and lifting the mask mandate would only make that damage worse. Sure, most of us students here wouldn't be severely harmed by COVID instantly if we contracted, if the mask mandate is lifted. But how do we know that we won't have life-threatening effects 5, 10, or 15 years from now? How do we know that we won't be bringing severe illness to the immunocompromised members of our families or our family here at school if the mask mandate is lifted? I urge you to consider if being required to wear masks for the next 3 months of school will harm you more than losing the ones you love. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaya. And Elena, if you want to turn that in when you're done, we'll take the list the next week. No, when we're done. Janie Antonelli, is that correct? Janine. Oh. Someone else want to read these names?
Janine Antonelli, Avon Grove. Good evening. I'm asking that you consider changing our current health and safety plan starting tonight to mask optional with any stipulations. Masking was a logical approach when facing the unknown, but now that we have seemingly moved into the endemic phase, it should be a personal choice of the parent and the child. Back in August, I sat here and listened while many parents poured their hearts out, expressing honest and personal testament, asking to make masking optional then. Without discussion and emotion, you voted to make masks mandatory. So here we are, 6 months later, seeing the effects that the masks are causing on our children. Mental health issues are on the rise. They're finding that toddlers' IQs are dropping at an average of 22 points. Students are struggling academically, and speech services are skyrocketing. After months of mandatory masking, my youngest is now labeled with a speech impairment and has an IEP. Tonight is your opportunity to intervene and put a stop to the harmful effects of masking for a virus that has a less than 1% chance of severely affecting children. Outside of school, we already have the choice to mask. We have the choice to travel softball, baseball, basketball. Our pediatrician doesn't even require a mask in his office. So I'm being optimistic and hoping that positive change is coming to AGCS. As parents, it is our job to teach our children about risk and risk taking. We want our children to become critical thinkers, to ask questions if something doesn't make sense, and to not fall in line. My kids see inconsistencies across campuses. For instance, my 3rd grader has to eat with plexiglass between her and her classmates, while my 7th grader does not. She also must keep her mask up or on her chin during recess, but my 7th grader can take his completely off. Please hand the choice back to the parents and let us make the calculated risk for our children. While masking may help some children feel safe, masking is restricting to others. In regards to academics, I was extremely disappointed that AGCS is not going to induct deserving middle schoolers into the National Junior Society this year, due to not having a teacher who wanted to sponsor the group. This decision is not in the best decision of the children. My second concern is with my son's Algebra 2 class. His teacher is on maternity leave, and we were told that there was not a single candidate to fill her absence. So now the children are without an official teacher, and they are expected to learn once again virtually, this time through the Brandywine Valley Academy. We should be doing better, finding the best for our students to push them forward academically. I think we can rebuild and achieve academic excellence once we put this mask debate behind us. Let the parents make the choice to do what is best for their children. This will allow staff and administration to focus on academics and reestablish all the things that make AGCS such a special place. Thank you.
Rebecca Clark.
Hello. I'm here to speak tonight to ask Avon Grove Charter School, the board, to change the current health and safety plan to optional masking for all staff and students. Currently, the only place my oldest daughter needs to mask is on the school bus and in school. In every other activity, sports, church, and other aspects of our lives, my children are not masked. My youngest now doesn't even mask at school. So I ask you, does COVID only exist in specific schools now? Downingtown, Kennett, Coatesville, Avon Grove Charter specifically? Why are some schools continuing to enforce mandatory masking? I'm also here tonight to talk about my youngest daughter's masking issues resulting in headaches, nausea, and lack of appetite after wearing a mask all day from 7:10 a.m. until 4:45 p.m. Her physical manifestations began in October when she attended in-person school 2 days a week at Avon Grove Charter School. As the school year went on, her symptoms got worse, especially when she started 4 to 5 days in person beginning in spring of 2021. Then she went to camp over the summer with no mask and she was fine. No more mask symptoms. My husband and I decided that she needed to attend a school where she didn't have to wear a mask because the risk of long-term masking had become quite detrimental to her physically, mentally, and emotionally. Over the summer, up until mid-August, we had planned on her attending Avon Grove Charter School since it was mentioned in the health and safety plan in July that masking would be optional. We felt blindsided in mid-August after the school board meeting when the board willingly decided to force all students and staff to mask. And currently she is somewhere else at another school. I really hope the school board's decision tonight is mask optional immediately. If cloth masking protected the students, then COVID cases at Avon Grove Charter School, Kennett, and Coatesville would be significantly lower than Oxford and some local private schools in the area where masking is optional. But it's absolutely not the case. Case numbers, absences are hardly different. If mask protected people like the board has supported all along, Oxford and my daughter's school would have had numerous school closings due to a large number of student and teacher absences from COVID, but it's still not happening. And one more point that I would like to point out is that my daughter's private school is continuing to make education its main focus. The teachers, the administrators at her private school don't make COVID the main topic of conversation. They're not taking precious time out of the day to correct students all day long about their mask wearing because we're too busy doing what teachers are supposed to do. Teach our kids math, science, and English. And additionally, children there are learning because they can see and hear their teacher speak. Keeping kids in school doesn't necessarily translate to kids learning. I asked the administration board to make the learning experience their main priority now that the science has downgraded COVID, especially for kids. Please vote for masking to be optional immediately, and please keep it that way. There is not a one-size-fits-all solution to everyone's response to medical interventions. They may be helpful for some and completely detrimental to others, like my daughter and some of the other speakers here tonight whose children have been significantly affected by forced masking. Thank you.
Kelly Russell.
Hello. So I don't have a prepared speech. I'm just going to speak from my heart. I have 2 children in this school. I have 3 children altogether. My oldest has autism, but he doesn't go to this school. I have 2 other children, and I can tell you that both my children have needed to go to counseling. One of my children also developed an eating disorder this year and has missed at least, so far, 13 days of school, having to go to doctors at the CHOP eating disorder clinic and having to see a counselor on the side of that. Both of them with severe anxiety, which in my opinion has been brought about by using the mask. I have a child tonight who I don't want to say he or her because I don't want to out them, but is extremely distraught and was in tears, worried that the mask will not be lifted, the mask mandate will not be lifted. My other child is considering leaving the school, possibly to go to Avon Grove or just to be homeschooled because neither child can deal with the masks anymore. It's really, they feel like it's suffocating them personally. They feel like they're having a hard time making friends. And it's just been really, really tough. So I beg you to go back to what you did at the beginning of the school year, where it was initially going to be optional. And I respect the fact that, the students are, some of them really want to keep their masks, but please understand that there are students who possibly are not as well adjusted or for whatever other reason are having really struggling with dealing with having to keep their face masked all the time, not being able to see the expressions of their friends and their teachers. So please, please, I ask you to lift the mandate. Thank you very much.
Amy Krupa. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Obviously, it's no use discussing all the studies that have been done, the statistics that have been presented, the amount of overwhelming evidence that shows how and why masks don't work and never did. I'm not sure what exactly you as a school board are hoping to accomplish here, considering us parents have consistently fought against these mask mandates. You all never give us any evidence, present any facts, consider the health of any child. Instead, you blame. You blame the CDC, you blame the Chester County Health Department, you say your hands are tied, you say you're following the science. Me too. The science tells me I can put my kid in the Oxford School District and be mask optional. The science tells me I can put my kid in Octorara School District and our very own Avongrove School District, because both plan to be mask optional on the 28th, which is 2 weeks is ridiculous anyway. But all of these schools are in Chester County. All of these schools get their numbers from the same health department. What's the difference between us and them? Their school board members are elected. You want a personal story of the absurdity here at Charter? On Monday, as my son was about to get out of the car, book bag on, waiting for the door to open at the ELC, a teacher opens the door and immediately asks where his mask is. I tell her and him it's on the side of his book bag because it's there every day. Now he's rushing because we're holding up the morning car line. If you've ever seen the morning car line, it's a disaster, okay? And he has to take off his bag to reach around and put his mask on while he is outside. If you guys didn't realize that, these kids they have to have their mask on outside. It's like 20 feet for the entrance to the school. I don't care about a mask. I care about my son being able to walk into school without tripping, as he's done twice now because his heavy backpack is impeding him. Let's talk about actual problems in this school, because I can give you a few. Stop pandering. Stop using my child as a shield for you emotionally frail adults. Thank you.
Felix Krupa.
Good evening, board and families of AGCS. I hope everyone got to watch an amazing Super Bowl this past weekend. It was amazing, not for the play on the field, the trip down memory lane during the halftime show, or the overpriced commercials during the breaks. It was amazing because during a global pandemic, in a state with a declared state of emergency, they had stadium with 70,000 plus people standing shoulder to shoulder for hours, the overwhelming majority without masks. It's over. The pandemic is over. You're seeing that as states all over the country end restrictions, just as countries all over the world are. Your position gives you a vote on a very important issue at hand, how best to guide our children at school. And while any notion during the past votes of defaulting conservative and continuing mandatory masking seemed the safe approach with the unknown, it's clear that ignorance is past. Because the science on masking may still widely be debated, the science on the harm to our children is not. Children are having complications from masking medically, mentally, and emotionally. Imagine being a child and trying to learn from a teacher with no facial cues, not being able to see how words are spoken. Imagine the kids failing in school because they can't understand, having a mask that annoys them, irritates their face, makes them just plain uncomfortable. Imagine having headaches from wearing a mask all day in class. Now imagine being responsible for continuing that for the child. I showed my 7-year-old a video of a kindergarten class in Nevada being told they didn't have to wear masks to thunderous cheers from children. I asked him if he thought his class would react the same way. He said yes. The video broke my heart seeing the reaction from the children, but the comment from my son hurt worse. Of all the public comments I've heard or read, not a single parent in favor of mask optional has been against families having the option to mask. So when you vote tonight, and if you make the decision for mask optional, Don't put an arbitrary date like 2 weeks before it takes effect. We already played that game, and families are tired of seeing the can kicked down the road for no real reason. Thank you.
Lisa Rogers. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Kim Triditz.
I'm gonna make my 3 minutes this time.
And just before you start, I won't start the clock. We're down to 3 people. We have 10 minutes. We'll make sure everyone gets in. So.
One of the great things about this school is the community that we have. It's one of my favorite things about this school, the community, the board, teachers that love our kids. Few schools in the county, Chester County, have been willing to listen to parents lately, and I sincerely hope that Charter is among those few. So this is what it's like as we continue the journey to rock bottom as a disjointed community, society, and a school. We are in the weeds because people care more about what someone's vax status is than respecting someone's privacy. People thinking it's okay to make health decisions for someone else and to segregate students on mask or vaccination status. We are in this dumpster fire because people are hell-bent on controlling other people and they are using our children as pawns. How far is this going to go? Instead of concerning yourselves with the continuation of required masking until we hit some magical level of COVID, possibly forcing the remaining unvaccinated staff to get vaccinated, which is absolutely insane, and hiding behind this Chester County Health Department recommendations, here's a list of things that I think you should be concerned with instead. Identification of students who are struggling socially as a result of being forced to wear a mask at school, supporting students who are struggling with their mental health, what happens when current interventions do not work, ensuring that teacher and staff personal opinions do not appear in the school and in the classroom, learning what is and isn't in your circle of control, how you can ensure us as parents that when our children are mask free, they will be treated as normal children. Less than 1% of the school student and staff population have COVID this week. Less than 1% of the county population, Chester County, has COVID this week too. We need to make masks optional now, not on the 28th, because that's just an arbitrary date. We don't care. Not in however many months it takes to get to a fictional substantial number, and not in 3 weeks of sustaining that fictional substantial number. It's time for you to focus on educating our children and time for parents to make the health decisions for our children. In closing, a quote that I found on the school's webpage from Rudyard Kipling: "For the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack." Thanks.
Miranda Doyle.
Her daughter is currently in 2nd grade. On the first day of school, we sent her in wearing a mask just like everyone else. Not thrilled about it, but had hopes that it would end sooner rather than later. I picked her up in the car line. Before I could ask how her first day of school was, she told me, "Mommy, I don't feel good." I asked, "What's the matter? What doesn't feel good?" She says to me that she has a really bad headache and feels sick to her stomach. Looking at her in my mirror, she's pale, she's sweating, and looks like she was going to pass out. I asked if she was going to throw up. She tells me yes. I get to the church parking lot across the street where she swings open the door and starts vomiting. I got her in the front seat with the AC blasting on her, allowed her to sip water in between her vomiting. Once she stopped, we continued home. We had to stop again for her to continue vomiting several more times. Once home, she rested, hydrated, snacked on crackers, and about 45 minutes to an hour later, she was 100% back to normal. I knew at that time she wasn't sick. She continued to have these episodes during school hours, which I was called to pick her up, and also when picked up in Carline for weeks. I knew what was wrong with my daughter. The mask had been causing this. How did I know? Because I'm her mother. Our children were given to us by God to care for and protect by making the best choices for them. And we weren't allowed to do that simply by removing a mask to even see if that was the cause. Our rights were taken away to help her. How could I send my child into school feeling physically ill day after day, or removing her from her education by telling her to go sit in a nurse's office or to be picked up early? What would you all have done? Would you still feel like masking her is the best choice if it was your child? When I spoke to the school again to ask what our options were, we were turned to consult our doctor, maybe about a medical exemption. Great, now we get to go to the doctors. For the majority, don't want to write medical exemptions because of the backlash that they face. I was prepared to fight for our daughter. I must say we did get lucky and were eventually able to get her a note to wear a shield. So in October, she started going to school with her shield. Can you all guess what happened next? She has not had one single episode or symptom since October. And let's be honest, the shield does nothing. She is loving school again instead of hating it, minus the shield. The mask was doing more physical and mental harm to the good of our child. How many others is that true for? I don't even have time to talk tonight about our sixth grader and the social emotional challenges we have faced that have been brought on by these masks. Our preschooler that comes home scared that germs are going to hurt everyone, or her speech therapy that she has to go through now. The masks have never been a one size fits all, just like everything else in life. I am asking you all tonight to allow parents to have their God-given rights back to decide what is right for their child, and that we look to the future to not allow this to happen again in any scenario. We also need to start supporting both sides of this aisle. I want just as much support from my children because the masks are harming them as those that feel masks are protecting them.
Your time is up. I'm
Can I
sorry.
finish one paragraph?
Your time is up. I'm sorry, 3 minutes.
All right.
I'm sorry. And our last person is Tony Dieta.
Hello, everyone. This is my second time here. I'm not a great speaker. I'm just here to talk about that, a couple things. First, I have to ask, the format here is a little bit, to me, unfair to the parents. We speak, then we hear you guys speak, and we can't counter. So I would just like to request that maybe in the future, there's a change to that format, if that's possible. We can't counter anything you discuss because we're back in the corner being quiet when you guys have your final decision. So just a request. All I want to say about the mask is, I mean, there is no conclusive evidence that masking works. If there was, the data would be front and center on our face on every website. We are going by the CDC guidance, which is guidance, and we're supposed to use guidance, but the government was never set up to be intended to be the end all be all sayings of the rules we follow here. That's what communism and socialism is. Here, we're supposed to use that guidance and then think for ourselves and use other guidance to make our decisions. There's plenty of other scientists and epidemiologists out there that have differing opinions than the CDC. I'm not disrespecting them, but they're not the total all-knowing entity that we're acting like they are. So with that in mind, I would just ask that you, when you discuss this and you decide to vote, if you decide to keep masks going, please provide evidence that they work, because no one has done that yet. All I hear is case counts. For the first time since she started school, pre-K, my kindergartner has worn a mask, the last 2 years. She asked me last week that she wants to ride to work and the masks make her uncomfortable. She's been bringing home KN95 masks. No one said anything. They're not the cloth variety, which we know the cloth doesn't work. I think everyone's seen the news reports. So we've used the cloth masks for 2 years. They don't work. And now that we have vaccines, natural immunity, and better treatments, we're going to try and make children wear KN95s that were never meant to wear 8 hours a day. Plus, my daughter rides an hour in and an hour back. So that's a lot of time wearing a mask. So please, whatever you decide, please justify it. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you to all our speakers. Head of school presentation.
Do you want to do your committee or do you want to go right into that?
Oh, I skipped the committees, yeah. I have nothing to report. Finance committee, you're gonna hold? Facilities?
Yeah, we met last night. It was a fantastic way to spend Valentine's Day. We distributed the minutes for the meeting late this afternoon, so I apologize for that. They just came out this morning. Real quick, we talked about the parking lot over at the ELC, and there's a plan for addressing parking issue in front of the school as well as a temporary space across the street. We address parking lot. Talked about the summer replacement project for the ventilation, some of the ventilation components that Deji will cover in the finance report. And in the sake of time, I'll point everybody towards the minutes.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Okay. Human Resource Committee, Stacy.
Human Resources met last Monday. The nature of human resources is exactly that. So we have staff that come together to represent the educators from the school, as well as 2 board members and the head of HR. So much of what we discuss is not for public information, but we did want to share that we talked about the employee survey process. That is a process where we're surveying the teachers about school climate, meaning what's taking place in the school. That was done previously in the fall. It's going to be done again in April. We had tremendous turnout by the teachers, and we're looking for that to be shared again. And I'm going to defer the rest of the HR. It will be under the consent agenda regarding hires, resignations, as well as anyone leaving the school. So we'll defer until that point.
Thank you. As for the Strategic Planning Committee, it was deferred this month. Brian is still working some stuff, so we will have one in March. Now, head of school. Please.
You want to pass that down for me, the speaker?
The speakers, got it.
Thank you.
Steve, we have this.
Okay. Okay. Well, we celebrated the 100th day of school, and our goals are still the same as far as in-person learning for all, addressing students and staff members' social, emotional, mental health, ensuring a safe and caring environment for our school community, and staying focused and patient on educating our students. I want to commend the students for speaking tonight. It's very rare that you have any part of our student body that wants to speak to the board on an issue. I do hope that we come to an end of talking mostly at our meetings about health and safety as far as masks are concerned. I will say to you that, and again, this is my opinion, I don't think that the board, myself as administration, parents, when it comes to a pandemic, should have to have the burden of making these decisions. I think they should come from the medical field. And I do think that all schools should be on the same page when it comes to the medical decisions that are being faced through this pandemic. But with all that being said, we are tasked with providing this information, and we've followed the medical professionals all along since the beginning of this pandemic. And so why are we back here again talking about masks 3 weeks later? So there was recommended revisions as a result of looking at the metric-based data from the health experts. So this is from CHOP and from the Chester County Health Department, and they are providing us tons of data on where we're going. Boosters only became available in mid-November, and they're available for anybody that wants them along with vaccinations. No one's pushing them, but they're available, and that is a change. Isolations for positive cases has been reduced from 10 days to 5 if asymptomatic after day 5. Schools are no longer authorized to contact trace per the Chester County Health Department. Consistent survey collection from our parents, from our teachers, from our students, or dashboard information has been provided to our community all along. So with all of this being said, we have done our very best to collect every ounce of data so that the board can make a decision based on masks. Most recently, our staff asked, because they did not participate in the survey in December, if they could have some kind of input on how they feel about masks. So on the left, 4 to 12, you'll see there were 70 out of the 77 on the call participated in the survey. The choices were mask recommended but not required. The other one was mask required for all K to 12. At State Road, 44% of them said mask recommended, not required. 56% mask required for all K to 12 students. On the other side, on the right, you'll see our K to 3 teachers. Our K to 3 teachers, 40 out of the 43 participated, so it was 93%. 65% of them said mask recommended, not required, and 35% said mask required for all K to 12 students. So it really portrays what you're hearing tonight as far as there is a divide in our parent surveys, in our student input. I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong. I'm saying there's a mixed feeling. I know you hear majority of our parents tonight with masks recommended but not required. But I do want to point out that the feedback is pretty much divided. We did talk about the health risks of staff. And so staff said we do have medical needs in our staff. We also have kids that are under 5 that they have at home that cannot get vaccinated. So the request is, if we are mask recommended, not required, can we get some KN95 masks at the school for our staff? And so, you know, we did tell them the pharmacy provides free masks, along with we'll provide a stash here in case they needed them. Health-related concerns, we would work with the school nurses, and then they could help with plans to accommodate that. And also the teachers were very concerned about PTO days. And so those were some of the concerns from the staff. So masking reassessment. These are the factors that CHOP and the Chester County Health Department is saying why we should relook at mask reassessment and why we should come together tonight and look at a change. So the Omicron variant is less severe in symptoms. We have declining cases and transmission rates. Vaccinations and boosters are available for all school-age children, and that was the goal. As soon as we were able to be vaccinated, that we would relook at all of this, and then declining hospitalizations. You see the number as of yesterday. So February 9th, we were 178.5, and February 14th, we were 141. 11.8% positivity on the 9th and 9.3 on the 14th. February 12th of 2021 of last year, you see we were 122.5. So, I mean, people can get vaccinated, but the numbers haven't changed drastically. This is actually a graph of our school week by week. So from the first week, you'll see that big 66 in December, November, but you see the consistent decline that we've had since that peak. So it's exactly what the health professionals told us was going to happen. We were over 1,000 and now we're 144. So this all happened exactly the way they said we would peak, why we said mask 3 weeks ago, and why we're visiting it again tonight of mask recommended. So I am making a recommendation that we start on February 28th. The reason why schools are picking, and again, I think we should really be consistent on this topic, is because there are people with medical needs that need to work out plans with the school nurse, that need to get prepared, and it gives them the time to do that. And so that is why schools are recommending the end of February, the first week of March. All the superintendents are discussing all of this. This is not new news, and they all are falling in that time frame. So the school administration is recommending that we start Monday, February 28th. Mask recommended but not required for all students, staff, and visitors while inside Adam Grove Charter School buildings. Mask wearing on the school bus is a federal requirement. It's nothing that we can change, and that is until March 18th of 2022. I know the last time we had a conversation around quarantining and contact tracing, we will continue to provide that information on our dashboard of when there's positive cases in the school, so that we can continue to do until we find not a need. The Chester County Health Department is starting to decide whether or not they're going to provide that information anymore as a county. So as far as where the transmission is, that also is starting to not necessarily be available to us going forward.
Well, I'll kick it off. I would like to make the motion that starting February 28th, we are mask option, as stated there.
Mask required, but not,
Sorry.
mask recommended, but not
recommended,
required.
Not required. For all students, staff, and visitors while inside Adam Grove Charter School. Is there any discussion or comment?
I guess a comment or just a discussion point is, if we see the trend, so we know on the 28th, this is the recommendation based upon seeing this downward, continued downward and new evidence. If we would see any type of spiking like we saw after the holidays, what would be some of the considerations that we would look to, whether or not we need to examine as a school, as a class, if we're seeing spikes in certain areas, what kind of thoughts are there with the board and my fellow board members about if we need to go back in that direction. I think my concern, I'm not concerned with the 28th or the recommendation of going mask optional. My concern is if we see a change again going in the other direction, that we come back together. And again, that's the realistic thing that none of us know where we're going with that. So I'm not comfortable not moving forward and looking forward without some kind of dialogue and conversation. Obviously, the board can continue to come back at any time and meet and have those discussions. We can call a special board meeting to do that. But I definitely would, I don't want to put an arbitrary number though, because again, we don't know what that number might look like, but I think we need to consider if we see something going in the opposite direction. None of us have a crystal ball. We see it trending down and that's positive, and it's positive for all the efforts that are taking place. But I think, you know, I'm looking forward beyond that. So I think that's just some of my feedback.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do agree with Stacy. I think it's important that we continue to be flexible, no matter what decision is made. Because like we said, it's hard to predict the future. We haven't been able to do that this whole time. We've been up and down, and that we did say mask optional last summer, and then they were back, and the community was good about supporting that. And we were good about trying to work together. So I just hope that when our decisions made, that we continue to work together, and if things change, we still pull together and we follow what we believe is correct.
Based on the feedback from the health department, I'm not sure if we're going to get that kind of information where we're going to know we're at peaks and valleys anymore. So they are using the words endemic. And so I don't think that we're going to be getting that kind of information. What we will know is if we have too many teachers out or if we have too many students out. So we can communicate that kind of thing. But I want to be very realistic of where the health professionals are going and what they're communicating to us.
We're gonna have to use the school data. not
Exactly.
external.
And I think that would be what I would ask, that we
Yeah.
still continue to look at the school data.
Correct.
I guess I just had one question as it pertains to an increase of, let's call it flu-like symptoms, cold symptoms and whatnot, as it's described in our health and safety plan now. And you mentioned an important fact of potentially losing teachers to that. What is our plan for continuing business as usual to educate the students if we fall into that danger zone? And then also, are we keeping the parts of the plan that address removing students and teachers from school, proving they're free of COVID? Is that even something that is going to play in it?
So the last meeting that we had, we talked about substitutes. We've been really good about substitute coverage, how we plan that. I honestly hope we have some herd immunity here because we did have quite a bit of staff that had COVID. And so that 90-day protection to get us to the summer, I'm really hoping that we are in that safe zone for the staff that has already had it. But we would continue the plan that we've been doing all along for substitutes. If it became a problem where we saw something break out here, then that would be a different conversation. I don't know that until if that would happen. As far as students, I mean, parents are in control of the chart that we provided them, and you know who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated. We don't know all that information, so they're going to have to follow the guidance from the Chester County Health Department based on what symptoms they're providing. If it gets to Holly and to Sam, obviously they would give them guidance based on the feedback that they have.
And I would imagine it would follow the same current procedures with the nurse's office, that the students displaying those different
Fever,
and any
yeah.
other things, that it would follow the same policy, whether the child in the past had the flu or potentially something else that, so we would follow that.
Exactly. Yep.
KG or Colleen, any comments? Questions?
I have a 8-year-old third grader here at the charter school. And I will speak that she has that anxiety when she puts the mask on. I put her on the bus 3 days a week, and she gives me a kiss. She puts her mask on and gets on the bus because she knows it's required on the bus. And she leaves it on until we pick her up in the afternoon. So I can understand what some of the parents are going through in the anxieties. It's just my comment, my feeling.
Yes, please.
No, I mean, I don't think I have any, I think we should have already been done. My only concern, I guess, is I don't want to see like a few cases and then all of a sudden, that's my only concern. Is that we can't just immediately gonna go back. It's gonna be scary, just like every new step has been. A year ago, we were trying to get them back in school, so I think it's just the next step.
Any further statements, comments, questions? Do I have a second?
Second, Stacy Barno.
In a minute, I'm going to call for a roll call vote. I would ask, this is not a celebration, whichever way this goes. There are people on both sides. So I would just ask, please contain yourselves. You don't need applause or cheering either way. And students, thank you for coming out. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Dwayne, could we make the student list that the one young
Yeah,
lady?
she's going to give it to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
make it part of our record.
yes, she's going to give it to me. Okay. All right,
Dwayne Degler,
yes.
Stacy Barno,
Yes.
Michelle McCray,
Yes.
Deji Akatoy,
Yes.
Brian Ladman,
Yes,
Colleen Preston,
Yes.
Eugene Steger.
abstain.
So moved. Starting February 28th, Monday, Evergrove Charter School will be masked recommended, but not required for students, staff, and visitors. All right, moving along. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We appreciate you coming and
Feel
giving
free
your
to
comment.
You're welcome to stay.
Is there snacks afterwards?
No snacks.
No snacks, I'm sorry. All right, moving right along. Treasurer's report. I want to make sure you forget it. It's the treasurer's report, please stay. It's a hoot and a holler.
This is exciting. What do you mean? Feel like it's right on my deck.
All right,
All right, so there are 12 items on the list. We'll try to get to them as quickly as possible. And I will call for votes where appropriate to do so. So number one, AGCS financial statement approval, the fiscal period ending November 30th, 2021, financial statements. Based on the review of the financial statements as presented, administration is recommending that the November 2021 financials be presented to the Board of Trustees. The AGCS administration is requesting the board approve the financial statements as presented, subject to auditor's review under the consent agenda. Number two, the 2022 January vendor transaction and check register reports. Based on the review of the 2022 January vendor billing and check register reports, administration is requesting that the board approve the 2022 January vendor billing and check register reports as presented under the consent agenda. Number three, the cash position as of February 11, 2022. The school's cash position is very good. Number four, the Department of Environmental Protection Air Monitoring Equipment Licensing Agreement Annual Renewal. Department of Environmental Protection contacted the school regarding the annual agreement renewal for the air quality monitoring units situated in the State Road campus. The renewal is for a 12-month period. There is no change to the existing agreement, and the monthly fees payable to AGCS remains at $200 per month. Based on the completed reviews, administration is requesting that the board consider approval of the agreement as presented under the consent agenda. Number five, Kimblesville Partners LP parking space lease agreement. Administration has been working with the facilities to accommodate additional parking. Parking throughout the day at the Early Learning Center until the staff parking lot is in the front of the building is completed this summer. To address concerns raised by the township with regard to the mud and dirt transfer to 896 and to reduce the number of cars parked in the front lot of the school, administration has approached Kimblesville Partner LP, a doctor's office located across the street, to secure parking space for 20 staff members through the remainder of this school year. The leased parking space will cost $500 per month, and the lease will be terminated on the last day of school. The lease agreement has been prepared by Riley Ripper Holland and Kelly Greco, thank you, and all insurance in place as needed for this leasing agreement. Based on the review and the need for this parking space lease agreement, Administration is requesting that the board approve the parking space lease agreement as presented. So I need a motion to approve the parking space lease agreement between Campbellville Partners LP and the AGCS as presented.
Brian Lyman, I approve.
Any
Second.
There you go.
Gene second.
Any questions? Comments? None. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. Motion carries. Number six, Heckendorf and Child Architect Professional Services Agreement. The Heckendorf and Child Professional Architecture and Engineering Construction Phase Service Agreement for the Summer Ventilation Replacement Project has been reviewed by both the Facilities and Finance Committee. The total amount of this agreement is $79,820. The scope of this work included the project management, architectural, engineering, and structural services specific to replacing the ventilation units currently installed at the State Road campus. Based on these reviews and recommendations, administration is requesting the board approve the services agreement as presented. So I need a motion to approve the Heckendorf Child's Professional Architecture, Engineering, Construction Phase Services Agreement for the Summer Ventilation Replacement Project as presented. I'll say that 5 times.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second Stacy Barno.
All right. Any comments? Great. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Unanimous. Motion carries. Number 7, request for proposal, financial advisor. The business office presented to request for proposal documents to the committee for their review and comment. The purpose of the request for the proposal is to solicit competitive proposals for a qualified financial advisor to assist AGCS with identifying the best financing options available to construct an instructional building at the State Road campus. Based on the 2 RFPs presented, the Finance Committee made the decision, and a copy of the chosen RFP has been provided to the board for their reference. Number 8, Resolution 2022-10, Southern Chester County Regional Police Department 2021-2022 Extra Duty Police Services Agreement. Administration has been working with the London Grove Township for the last several months to provide a crossing guard to assist with directing traffic for the afternoon car line dismissal at the State Road campus. The increased volume of cars is specific to a larger number of families driving their students to school versus the students being transported on the school bus. After several months of collaboration with the township and then Southern Chester County Regional Police Department, an agreement has been drafted, and an off-duty officer will assume this role. A service contract has been prepared and reviewed by legal for all parties. Based on the review of the services contract, administration is requesting the board approve resolution 2022-10, granting AGCS the ability to enter into the service contract as presented. So I need a motion to approve the resolution 2022-10 as presented.
So this is at no cost. Though.
No, we have.
No, there is a cost.
$100 a
There's
day.
$100.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yes, there's absolutely a cost of $100.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Yep. So I need a motion.
A motion.
Okay. Need a second?
Brian.
Any other comments?
I guess I have a question. So in reviewing that contract, there's some notation that they're going to continue to monitor the AM traffic to see if that, because right now our main concern is dismissal traffic. Is there flexibility with the police department? Do they have the dedicated staff, or is it more of a contingency if they have available staffing that they're going to be able to do this for us? My concern is them getting pulled. If they get, as police departments, obviously they are serving the public, this is a supplemental contract. Do we have, I know it's a handshake kind of agreement, that they're going to do their very best to be here. But was there any discussion about that, about how much they can guarantee that they're going to be here for us to do this? I'm just concerned about it being a day-to-day thing. And 3 days a week they're here, the next week it's 2 days a week. But was there any discussion when we came up with that contract?
For the crossing guard, sorry.
Correct, yes, I'm catching up.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing well,
Yeah.
not really, but since October, this has been a thing that we've kind of piecemealed. But I do know they have a backup. I haven't gotten the idea that they wouldn't be able to come consistently.
Okay.
So, I don't think that's gonna be a problem based on what the feedback from the police.
And we haven't gotten any complaints about the morning. The morning definitely seems to be a much more remediable situation.
Correct. Yeah.
And would this also address, I know there was a survey sent out to seniors who are parking way at the Little Lake Field, miles down the road, and juniors, I imagine as well. Did we come up with that help support crossing, getting across the street for
It will
those
support
students?
them and the kids that live in the neighborhood. We did
Excellent.
offer a van
Yeah,
to the
I was
kids
gonna
that,
ask, just to discuss
and,
that. It's
and
important.
they all said they had a ride.
Okay.
Other than two, and then they made an arrangement for whatever,
Okay.
I don't know what that was, but I do know I made them offer the van to every single kid that was
Absolutely.
walking, and they were all like,
We got it.
figured it out. So it's been out there as an option.
And I think it's important for the public to know that that was offered, because I thought that was a good solution of looking at, we know that, there's many Avon Grove students that are parking there too, but going from the stretch of Avon Grove High School to Avon Grove Charter School is extremely dangerous. If you've ever walked there, I walked there as a kid many, many years ago. We would walk and park far away, and it's dangerous, and it's only gotten worse with the traffic. So I just wanted to commend the school for looking at solutions for students.
Agreed. Yes, thank you.
Any other comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Number 9, the 2021-2022 fiscal year audit. This year, after much discussion, the Finance Committee is in agreement that the business office will engage Barbara Thornton and Company to perform the 2021-2022 fiscal year audit. This firm has performed our last several audits, and to address concerns of complacency, the business office will request a new on-site field team to be assigned to perform the audit, while the firm partner will remain the school's primary contact. The audit performed last year went extremely well, and with the changes presented and at times ongoing with the new Sage Intact accounting platform, the business office recommends AGCS remain with the Barbara Thornton and Company for upcoming audit, with a request for a new on-site team assigned to complete the field work. I will pause here for just a moment if there's any questions specifically on the audit team. I know that was a point of debate. None? All right, I will continue then. Number 10, the AGCS 2022-2023 fiscal year budget process. The 2022-2023 budget is a little behind schedule this year. Administration will work with the school directors and the administrators to complete staffing, curricular, non-instructional facilities, food services, and capital expenditure data for entry into the 2022-2023 budget templates. Additional resources have been requested to assist the business office this year, and all deliverables will be met. As the business office moves through the process, key administrators will meet to review all budget line items, clarify priorities, and adjust as required. Administration will review the budget with the finance committee and update the board members as they continue to move through the process. All right, number 11, I'm going to actually defer this one to Donna and Donna.
So we did have Donna, do you want to grab that, just because they heard you really clearly with that at the podium. Put it at the table if you want.
Thank you. Okay, so we did have some late business come in today. As you know, we are working on the ventilation replacement project for this summer. It's been a project that's been planning for the last 18 months. And with the supply change order and resources not being available, we knew that we could come into some difficulties with deliveries and securing those deliveries in time for the project to be completed this summer. So the board awarded the bid early to allow more time for these items to be ordered so that they would be on site when the project mobilized in June. Unfortunately, last week we heard the lead time for some of these items was increased. Electrical switches were increased to 26 weeks, and the actual ventilation units coming whole with their board, the component boards inside the ventilation units, was pushed out 40 weeks. So we spent the week brainstorming, looking at the options. What could we do? Could we put in other schematics to try and resolve it? Is there another unit that we could buy? So with regards to the ventilation unit, we did have the ability to buy the same unit, but we would purchase the encasing in the majority of the unit with the boards purchased separately And then the boards would be installed by our mechanical contractor to ensure that we would have them ready to go for installation this summer. So with that comes an additional cost for the labor for the mechanical contractor to install the boards into the units as well as the expedited shipping. So in working with Jared and talking to the electrical engineers, and this has been going on for a couple of days, we were hoping to have these change orders to the facilities committee last night, but we were able to share them with Brian today. The mechanical change order for all units for the State Road campus is coming in at $55,040. So that is the first change order, and that is change order mechanical 001. The second one is for the electrician, and this has to do with the switches that will be required for the electrical upgrades for the State Road campus. So with the ventilation systems coming in, we also have air conditioning coming in for the auditorium. And we had an electrical upgrade that was planned. So not only could it account for the new unit on the ceiling for the auditorium, it would also provide additional capacity so that we could provide in-room classroom air conditionings to provide relief for the 4th and 5th grade hallways. Without the switches, we won't be able to do that. And there is going to be a question whether or not there's going to be capacity to actually run the auditorium air conditioning without additional work from the mechanical contractor to do a workaround. So with that being said, we've asked the electrician to go back to their manufacturers to see what could be done to expedite the delivery of these switches. They came back, the manufacturer came back with an expedited handling and the cost of $37,000 to turn that, to guarantee that the switches will be on site instead of being here the end of September, early October. They're saying this expedited handling will guarantee they're here by July 25th. So with that being said, the $37,000 was received, reviewed by the project manager, the engineering and our electrical consultants. You know, still not feeling all that comfortable with whether or not those switches will be here on July 25th. Should the switches not arrive, that $37,000 will be credited back to the school. So again, we're trying to secure all the options to make sure everything goes smoothly this summer. I believe the option that we have with the mechanical contractor for the vent units with the boards and the installation offsite and then installation in the school is a viable option. But we're with the electrical contractor, we're dependent on the manufacturer. I am concerned about them coming in on the 25th of July. If they're not here at the 25th of July, they have to return. We get a credit for $37,000. So with that being said, I have two change orders as presented to me today. One for 5 Star Incorporated change order, mechanical change order 001 in the amount of $55,040. And then Donald Pusey Incorporated, the electrical contractor, change order 001 in the amount of $37. Administration is requesting the board motion to approve these change orders so that the school can be added to the list and this expedited handling can be initiated quickly. We were given 2 days by the manufacturer because there are so many schools in line for the ventilation units as well as switches. So we're trying to move this, complete our due diligence and move this as quickly as possible.
All right, so can I have a motion for the 2022 statements of?
Yes, we need a motion.
I do need I need a motion to approve the two change electrical contract change order number 001 and the mechanical contract change order number 001 as well. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any comments? I do have a comment. The difference in cost between this approval versus the original approval.
Yes, it was $37,000 for the electrical because that is an expedited shipping. And then with regards to the ventilation unit, the original ventilation cost would have been $88,000, but we did receive a credit back from the manufacturer for the ventilation units, but we had to pay additional labor at prevailing wage for the mechanical contractor to install the boards. But otherwise, if we didn't move in this direction, we would have to wait until next summer. And then we would be paying a higher prevailing wage because it's a year later.
More for materials.
All in favor? All opposed? Nomination carries. Number 12, miscellaneous business office items. The 2022 statement of financial interest due to the business office by May 1 of 2022. And last but not least, can I have a motion to approve the business office consent agenda as presented? Have a second. Any comments, questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries as approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, are you able to move the speaker?
You can.
Thank you.
Frisbee, catch it. Moving along to the personnel section.
Yes.
Stacy, you're taking over for Tasha. Is that
I
correct?
am, correct. So the personnel recommendations, so we're looking for the board to review some routine personnel consent agendas. So under resignations, there was one resignation, Elisa Juarez Martinez, third grade instructional aide, that was effective 2/4/22. Retirements, we did not have any. We did not have any releases under letter D. There were no leaves under letter E. F, additions to payroll and professional staff. We have one, Ian Klink, computer tech multimedia teacher, effective 2/28/22. And then we have several additions for payroll for support staff under letter G. They are Leah Hash, aftercare aide, effective 2/1/22. Allison Pencil, State Road Cafeteria Associate, 2/11/22. And Dominic Patton, State Road Custodian, also effective 2/22/22. There were no additions to payroll for contracted vendors.
There's one more. on
Okay.
here.
That's in the calendar.
Here, Stacy.
The cows.
Nope, I can pull it up. No problem, thank you. Thank you for catching that. One final addition to letter G, for additions to payroll support staff, Matthew McAllister, Building and Grounds Supervisor, 2/22/22. We did not have any contracted vendors to the payroll or seasonal staff. So what we're looking for is administration is recommending,
Just pause it
I'm
for the
reading through
season
stuff.
of staff.
there's more, and I don't see anything there. Okay.
They're there.
Okay, thank you. Under letter I, additions to payroll seasonal staff, Denise Hevener, it's rehired for an athletic trainer, 2/10/22. And Dominic Patton, the men's assistant lacrosse coach, 3/7/22. All right, as we're finalizing that, so we're looking for a motion for the board, as administration is recommending the approval of staffing changes provided within the personnel consent agenda, specifically items 8A through 8I. Can I have a motion?
Brian, I'll motion.
Second? And all in favor?
Any discussion?
Any discussion?
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? As reviewed earlier at our working session, Donna, I'm just going to go through these to kind of speed this up if you don't mind. There is a set of policies that were recommended for approval that we all reviewed. That would be policy 1017, homebound instruction, policy 2004, attendance, policy 2004.1, temporary medical excusals, policy 2007, confidential communication of students, policy 2008, withdrawal from school, policy 2034, pregnant parenting students, and policy 6006, child abuse. Is there a motion to approve those aforementioned policies?
Stacy Barn, I'll make a motion to approve the policies as you've listed.
Is there a second?
Stacy, I can call you out second.
Any discussion, comment, other than what we had at the board session? Anything else? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? So carried, so moved. Uh, Administration is also recommending the rescinding of the policy called family trips. Is there any motion to rescind the policy?
I'll motion, Michelle McCray.
Is there a second?
Yep, a second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? So moved. For next month, there is a series of policies that are to be reviewed and will be presented for adoption. Those are 1013, special education, policy 1013.1, evaluations for students with disabilities, policy 1013.2, behavioral support, policy 1013.4, confidentiality of special educated student information, policy 1022.1, concussion management, policy 1022.2, sudden cardiac arrest, policy 4010, purchases subject to bid quotation, policy 4011, purchases budgeted, and policy 4026, the attachment procurement. Also at that time, administration will recommend the following to be rescinded. Oh my gosh. 1013.4, confidentially as special educated student information, the child find policy, positive behavioral support policy, special education student enrollment policy, the special education policy, the students with specific learning disabilities, assistive technology policy, transition services policy, special education training policy, special transition services policy, psychological services policy, least restrictive environment policy, evaluations, reevaluations, and the independent evaluations policy. I'm glad we're getting into that one. Wow. Extended school year policy, and dispute resolution and alternative dispute resolution policy. So please take a look at all those for next month. Is there any further comments from the school principals or directors? Nope. Any comments from committees?
Yes, nomination committee.
Yes, ma'am, it's all you.
Yes, so nomination committee. At the end of this year, we're going to be looking to fill several vacant board seats that we will have like to fill for next year. So we're going to start the process soon of forming the nomination committee. The nomination committee is instrumental in helping us screen, interview, and to make a ultimate recommendation to the board for the vote in the June annual meeting. I'm hoping to see some familiar faces from in the past and also some new faces. All are welcome once we do the call out for the nomination committee. That includes community members and staff and parents. So if you're interested, it's a great way to participate in the school and be on the lookout in the next few weeks for information about that.
I do want to thank the nurses real quick. They were here the whole time and I just appreciate everything they've done. They really are holding it all together. So thank you both.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so having said that, if there's no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second Stacy Barno.
All in favor? All opposed? Thank you very much. We'll see you next month.